The bouncer's voice cut across the crowded entrance like a blade. "Full capacity, old man. Fire code. You need to move along." Roland Chin stood in the February cold, his worn jacket held together with safety pins and hope. His hands, weathered and scarred, remained still at his sides. What the bouncer didn't know, what nobody in that packed sports bar knew, was that those hands had once held a knife to the throat of a North Vietnamese general in an operation that officially never happened. And in exactly 9 minutes, when the bar owner noticed the faded unit patch barely visible on Roland's backpack, everything in that establishment would change. The wind off the bay cut through the thin fabric of Roland's jacket. February in San Francisco carried a bite that reached bone. He had walked 7 miles from the shelter on 3rd Street. Not for the game, not for the warmth, just to stand near the noise and the light and remember what it felt like to be part of something. Through the wide windows of Murphy's Sports Bar, he could see crowds gathering around massive screens. Super Bowl Sunday, the biggest night of the year. Laughter spilled out every time the door opened, carrying with it the smell of hot wings and beer and normalcy. The bouncer stepped forward, blocking Roland's path more completely. Kyle Brennan stood 6'3", shoulders broad in his black security shirt, 20 years of gym work obvious in every movement. His eyes swept over Roland with practiced dismissal, cataloging the worn boots held together with duct tape, the jacket 3 sizes too large, the backpack that had seen better decades. Kyle's lip curled slightly. He had handled this type before. Homeless, probably looking for handouts or a warm place to sleep. Bad for business. Bad for the image Murphy's had spent years building. "Sir," Roland said quietly, his voice barely audible over the street noise. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wonder if I might get some water. Maybe warm up for a few minutes." Kyle's laugh was sharp and theatrical, designed to be heard by the well-dressed couples waiting behind Roland. "Water? Listen, buddy, we've got a $200 minimum tonight. Every seat is reserved. Every table is spoken for. You can't just walk in here looking like that." He gestured at Roland's appearance with a wave that managed to be both dismissive and performative. His voice rose slightly. "This is a private establishment. We have the right to refuse service." Roland nodded once. "I understand, sir. I'll go." His hands remained at his sides, but something in the way he stood shifted, just for a moment. The slouch of someone trying to disappear straightened into something else. Something rigid and automatic. His shoulders squared. His feet positioned themselves precisely shoulder-width apart. The movement lasted less than 2 seconds before he caught himself and the slouch returned, but it was enough. Sarah Kim, carrying a tray of empty glasses from the patio section, stopped mid-step. She had been working at Murphy's for 3 years, putting herself through nursing school 1 shift at a time. She had seen hundreds of customers, thousands of people passing through. But something about the old man's posture made her pause. The way he had stood when Kyle addressed him. It reminded her of her grandfather, the way he used to snap to attention when someone called his name, even decades after leaving the service. Kyle, however, noticed nothing. He was already turning to the waiting customers, his voice shifting to professional courtesy. "Sorry about that, folks. Just clearing some space. Your table's ready. Come on in." He shot a look back at Roland. "You still here?" I said move along. Roland took 1 step back, then another. His eyes never left Kyle's face, but there was no anger there. No resentment, just a kind of tired acceptance that settled into the lines around his mouth. He had been dismissed from better places by better men. This was just one more door closing. One more reminder that he belonged to the margins now. But as he turned to leave, his backpack shifted against his shoulder. The main compartment faced outward for just a moment. There, barely visible beneath years of wear and grime, was a patch. Faded olive drab with gold stitching. Most of it was obscured, but 2 things were clear. A sword with wings, and beneath it, numbers. 5th. The rest was too worn to read from a distance. Vincent Russo stood behind the bar, 20 feet away, wiping down the polished wood with methodical strokes. At 55, he had owned Murphy's for 12 years, built it from a failing dive into one of the Marina District's most popular spots. He was a quiet man, The kind who listened more than he spoke, who watched his staff and his customers with the same careful attention his father had taught him. His father, who had served in Korea. His father, who had taught him that you could tell a lot about a man by the way he carried himself, especially when he thought no one was watching. Vincent's hand stopped moving. The patch. He had seen that patch before. In photographs. In history books. In the documentary his father had made him watch about special forces in Vietnam. The sword. The wings. The fifth. His eyes snapped to Roland's face, studying the weathered features, the way the old man held himself even in retreat. "Hey," Kyle called out, his voice taking on an edge of irritation. "I'm talking to you. You need to clear the sidewalk, too. You're blocking the entrance. Loitering is illegal." Roland nodded again. "Yes, sir. I'm going." He took another step back, careful to move out of the path of the arriving customers. The February wind cut through his jacket again, and for just a moment, his hand went to his chest, touching something through the fabric. A habit. Unconscious. His fingers traced the outline of metal hanging beneath his shirt. Then his hand dropped back to his side. Sarah set down her tray and moved closer to the entrance. Something about this wasn't right. The old man wasn't drunk. He wasn't aggressive. He was just cold and asking for water. She had seen Kyle turn away dozens of people, but usually they argued, they pushed back, they made scenes. This man just accepted it with a kind of dignity that made her chest hurt. "Kyle," she said, stepping forward. "Maybe we could just let him sit at the bar for a few minutes. Just to warm up. I can get him some water and maybe some bread from the kitchen." Kyle's head snapped toward her. "Are you serious? Look at him." He gestured at Roland without looking. "You want that sitting at our bar? On Super Bowl Sunday? When we've got customers willing to drop serious money?" He lowered his voice, but not enough. "This is exactly why Vincent hired me. To keep the atmosphere right. To maintain standards." Vincent's jaw tightened behind the bar. He hadn't hired Kyle to maintain standards. He had hired him to check IDs and keep drunks from fighting. But Kyle had taken the job and expanded it into something else. Into gatekeeping. Into deciding who belonged and who didn't based on appearance and assumptions. The door opened again and more customers pushed in, forcing Roland to step further back onto the sidewalk. The gap between him and the warmth widened. Through the glass, he could see the first game coverage starting on the screens. National anthem about to play. In another life, he would have stood at attention automatically, hand over heart, thinking about brothers who never came home. Brothers whose names were carved into black granite in Washington. Brothers who deserved better than what they got. Kyle pulled out his phone. "That's it. I'm calling SFPD. Public nuisance. Loitering. They'll move you along." He started dialing, making sure Roland could see. Roland's voice came again, still quiet, still respectful. "Sir, I'm leaving. There's no need for that. I apologize for any trouble." He turned fully now, preparing to walk back into the cold, back into the 7-mile trek to the shelter, back into the careful invisibility that kept him safe. But Sarah saw his eyes as he turned, and what she saw there wasn't shame or anger. It was something worse. It was the look of someone who had stopped expecting anything different. Someone who had learned that doors close and stay closed. Someone who had accepted that he was outside now and always would be. "Wait," she said, the word coming out before she could stop it. Kyle's hand came up. "Sarah, don't. Just don't. Go back to your section. This isn't your concern." He turned his attention back to his phone, thumb hovering over the call button. "I'm giving you 10 seconds to clear this sidewalk," he said to Roland. 10, 9, 8. Vincent set down his bar towel. His father's voice echoed in his head. "The patch, Vincent. Pay attention to the patch. Look at how he stands. Look at his hands. That's not just any old man." He started moving toward the entrance, weaving between customers, his eyes never leaving the scene unfolding at his door. Roland took one last look through the window, at the warmth, at the light, at the people who belonged. Then he adjusted his backpack, felt the weight of everything he carried. The photograph in the front pocket. His daughter. 6 years since he had seen her face in person instead of from a distance. 6 years since he had pushed her away because he couldn't bear to let her see what he had become. The challenge coin in his jacket pocket, worn smooth by decades of fingers tracing its edges. Tony's coin, Antonio Reyes, died in his arms in a jungle that officially didn't exist. Still here, brother, Roland whispered to himself. Still trying. The words had become a mantra, a promise to the dead that he would keep going even when he didn't know why. Even when every door closed. Even when the cold reached his bones and the hunger made him dizzy and the shame felt like it would crush him. 7. Kyle continued counting. 6. 5. His finger moved closer to the call button. Vincent reached the entrance just as Kyle hit 4. His hand came down on the younger man's shoulder. "Kyle," he said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of ownership. "Stop counting." Kyle turned, confused. "Boss, I'm just handling this. Fire code says we're at capacity, and this guy was harassing customers." Was he harassing anyone? Vincent asked. His eyes were still on Roland, on the way the old man stood in the cold, on the patch barely visible on his backpack, on the precise way he had positioned his feet when addressed. Was he loud? Was he threatening? Was he drunk? Well, no, but Kyle started. Vincent's voice cut through. Then he wasn't harassing anyone. He was asking for water. On a cold night. During the biggest game of the year. And you were about to call the police on him for that. His eyes finally moved to Kyle's face. "Stand down." The words landed with the weight of command. Not a request. An order. Kyle's mouth opened and closed. But Vincent was already moving past him, stepping out onto the sidewalk where Roland stood. "Sir," Roland said, looking at Vincent with careful eyes. "I don't want any trouble. I'll go." His voice carried the same quiet respect he had shown Kyle, but something in Vincent's expression made him pause. The bar owner wasn't looking at him with disgust or pity. He was looking at him with something else. Recognition, maybe, or curiosity. Vincent shook his head slowly. "You asked for water. Come inside. Get warm." His hand gestured toward the door, but his eyes stayed on Roland's face, searching for something. Behind them, Kyle made a sound of protest that Vincent silenced with a single raised finger. "Not now, Kyle. Not another word." The walk from the cold sidewalk into the warmth of Murphy's felt like crossing a border Roland had been exiled from for years. The heat hit him first, then the noise. Television's blaring game coverage. Conversations layering over each other. The clink of glasses and silverware. The smell of food made his stomach clench with sudden hunger he had learned to ignore. He kept his eyes down, following Vincent's broad back through the crowd, conscious of the stares, of the space people created around him as he passed. Vincent led him to a stool at the far end of the bar, away from the main crowd. "Sit," he said. It wasn't harsh. It was the voice of someone used to being obeyed without raising volume. Roland sat carefully, setting his backpack on the floor between his feet, keeping it close. Everything he owned was in that bag. The photograph, the coin, the dog tags he couldn't wear openly anymore, a change of socks, a paperback book so worn the pages were falling out, an emergency blanket, a plastic bottle he refilled at public fountains. Sarah appeared at his elbow within seconds, setting down a tall glass of ice water and a basket of warm bread. Her eyes were kind, carefully not looking too long at the grime on his hands or the hollow places in his face. "Thank you," Roland said softly. The words came out rough. He couldn't remember the last time someone had given him something without asking what he could give back. Vincent moved behind the bar, but his attention never left Roland. The patch on the backpack was clearer now in the light. 5th Special Forces Group, the sword and wings more visible. The wear and tear of decades couldn't hide what it was, what it meant. Vincent's father had taught him to recognize those symbols, had taught him that men who wore them had done things most people couldn't imagine, in places most people would never know about. But the question was why? Why was a man who had worn that patch sitting in his bar looking like he had been living rough for years? Why wasn't the VA taking care of him? Why wasn't he surrounded by brothers who would never let him fall this far? Vincent had seen homeless veterans before. The marina had its share. But something about this one felt different. Felt wrong in a way he couldn't name yet. Roland took a small sip of water. The cold hit his throat, and he had to force himself not to gulp it down. He knew better. Too much too fast, when you had been running on empty led to cramps and sickness. He set the glass down with careful hands and broke off a piece of bread. The texture was soft, fresh, still warm from the kitchen. He chewed slowly, mechanically, his mind already drifting to places he tried not to go. 6 years ago, he had sat at a different table in a different restaurant. Elena across from him, his daughter, 29 years old and radiant with her medical school acceptance letter in her hands. "Dad," she had said, laughing, "I'm going to be a doctor, just like you always said I could." Her mother had been dead for 3 months. Aneurysm. No warning. One moment laughing at breakfast, the next moment gone. Elena had been holding it together for both of them, being strong, planning the future, insisting they would get through it. But Roland hadn't been able to hold it together. Every time he looked at Elena, he saw her mother's face. The same eyes, the same smile, the same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. And the weight of it, the grief, the guilt that he had survived wars and operations and impossible odds, but couldn't save the woman he loved from her own body. It had crushed him flat. He had started drinking. Then he had stopped sleeping. Then he had stopped being able to function at all. The walls of their apartment had felt like they were closing in. The memories everywhere. Her coffee cup still in the cabinet. Her jacket still hanging by the door. Her voice still echoing in every room. He had looked at Elena, trying so hard to take care of him, and realized he was drowning her, pulling her down with him. She had her whole life ahead, and he was an anchor made of grief and failure. So one morning, he had packed a bag, left a note on the kitchen table. "I love you. I'm sorry. Live your life. Don't look for me. You deserve better than what I've become." He had walked out before she woke up, disappeared into the mass of humanity that filled San Francisco's streets, became invisible, became no one. It was supposed to protect her, supposed to set her free. 6 years of watching from a distance. He knew where she worked now. Emergency room at San Francisco General. He had stood across the street more times than he could count, just to catch a glimpse of her walking in or out. She was 35 now, a full doctor, saving lives, building the career her mother had dreamed for her. And he was this, a ghost, a man who had chosen the streets over his own daughter because he couldn't face his own pain. "You okay?" Vincent's voice cut through the spiral. Roland's hand had frozen halfway to his mouth, the bread forgotten. His eyes were wet, and he wiped at them quickly with the back of his hand, embarrassed. "Yes, sir," Roland said. "Just tired. Thank you for the water and bread. I should go." He started to stand, but Vincent's hand came down gently on the bar between them. "Stay through the game," Vincent said. "It's warm. You can rest. No one will bother you." His eyes held Roland's. "I saw your patch. 5th group. My father served in Korea. He taught me to respect the men who wore those symbols. So stay. Please." Roland sank back onto the stool. The kindness was almost harder to bear than Kyle's contempt. Contempt he understood. Contempt he had earned by letting himself fall this far. But kindness made the walls he had built start to crack. Made him remember there had been a time when he belonged somewhere. When he had brothers who would die for him and he for them. His call sign had meant something. Nomad. They had called him Nomad because he could disappear into any terrain, any population, any situation and become invisible. The ghost who spoke 7 languages and could pass for local in a dozen countries. The operator who had run missions from Laos to Cambodia to places that didn't have names on maps. The team leader who had brought his men home alive more times than anyone had a right to expect. And now he was living up to the name in the worst way. A nomad. No home, no family, no place to belong. Just movement and survival and the daily battle not to give up completely. On the television above the bar, the national anthem began to play. Around the room, people stood. Conversation stopped. Hands went over hearts. Roland's body responded before his mind caught up. He stood at attention, spine straight, shoulders back, hand moving to his chest with precision that 40 years couldn't erase. His lips moved silently with the words. His eyes fixed on the flag displayed on the screen. Sarah, passing by with another tray, stopped and stared. The transformation was complete. The hunched homeless man had vanished. In his place stood someone else entirely. someone whose bearing spoke of discipline and training and a life spent in service. She glanced at Vincent and saw the bar owner watching Roland with an expression she couldn't quite read. Sadness, maybe, and something else. Respect. The anthem ended. The room erupted in cheers and conversation. Roland sat back down slowly, the military bearing fading back into the protective slouch. But Vincent had seen it. Sarah had seen it. And across the bar, Kyle had seen it too, his face twisted in confusion and something that might have been the first whisper of doubt. Roland touched the spot on his chest where the dog tags hung beneath his shirt. Hidden from view, but always there. The metal was warm from his skin. He had worn them for so long they felt like part of his body. His name, his service number, his blood type, and beneath his own tags, a second set. Antonio Reyes. A positive. Catholic. The tags he had pulled from Tony's neck 43 years ago in a jungle clearing while his best friend bled out in his arms. Still here, brother, Roland whispered into his water glass. Still trying. It was the promise he made every day. To Tony, to all the brothers who hadn't made it home, that he would keep going, that their sacrifice wouldn't be wasted on a man who gave up, even when giving up felt like the only mercy left. Vincent refilled Roland's water without being asked. The game coverage continued on the screens. The bar filled with more customers. Kyle worked the door with barely controlled anger, shooting looks at Roland every few minutes. And Roland sat at his stool, eating bread slowly, drinking water carefully, and trying not to remember all the things he had lost. Try not to think about Elena, about whether she was watching the game somewhere, about whether she ever thought about him, about whether forgiveness was even possible for a father who had walked away. The halftime show had just ended when Kyle made his move. He had been watching Roland for the past hour with growing resentment, his jaw tight every time Vincent refilled the old man's water or Sarah brought him another basket of bread. The bar was packed now, standing room only, people pressing 3 deep at the counter trying to get drinks. And here was this vagrant taking up a prime seat, eating free food, contributing nothing. Kyle pushed through the crowd with purpose. Vincent was occupied at the far end of the bar, mixing drinks for a party of 8. Sarah was in the kitchen. This was his chance to handle what should have been handled an hour ago. He planted himself directly behind Roland's stool, close enough that his presence was unmistakable. "Time's up," Kyle said, his voice loud enough to cut through the game noise. "You've had your water. You've had your rest. Bar's too crowded for freeloaders." His hand reached out and gripped the back of Roland's stool, tilting it slightly. "Let's go. Now." Roland turned slowly. His movements were careful, controlled. "Sir, I was told I could stay through the game. I haven't caused any problems." His voice remained level, but something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Something older. Something that recognized a threat and was calculating responses faster than conscious thought. "Yeah, well, I'm telling you different," Kyle said. He straightened to his full height, using every inch of his 6'3" frame. His hand moved from the stool to Roland's shoulder, fingers pressing down hard. "Owner's busy. He won't notice. And honestly, you've overstayed your welcome." His voice dropped lower. "You smell like the street. You're making customers uncomfortable. So get up and get out before I make you." Around them, conversations began to fade. Heads turned. Phones came out. A woman in a business suit 2 stools away shifted uncomfortably. A man in a team jersey pulled his girlfriend back slightly, creating space. The attention fed Kyle's confidence. This was what he was good at: managing situations, maintaining order, making the hard calls that softer people avoided. Sarah emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of loaded nachos and stopped dead. Her heart sank as she saw Kyle's hand on Roland's shoulder, saw the crowd beginning to form. "No," she thought. "Not this. Not now." She set down the tray and started moving toward them, but the press of people slowed her progress. Roland's hand came up slowly and touched Kyle's wrist. Not grabbing, not aggressive, just a light touch, the kind that asked for release without demanding it. "Please remove your hand," Roland said quietly. "I'll speak with the owner. If he wants me to leave, I will." "The owner wants you gone," Kyle lied smoothly. "I'm his head of security. I make these decisions." He increased the pressure on Roland's shoulder, trying to force him to stand. And I'm telling you to move. Last chance. That was when Vincent saw them. He had just finished pouring a round of shots when he glanced up and caught sight of Kyle's hand on Roland's shoulder, saw the crowd forming, saw the phones recording. His face went dark. He set down the bottle hard enough that the sound carried. Kyle, Vincent's voice cut across the bar like a whip. Step back. Right now. But Kyle was committed now. Too many witnesses. Too much pride at stake. He couldn't back down in front of the whole bar. That would make him look weak. Would undermine his authority. So instead, he doubled down. Boss, this guy needs to go. He's taking up space paying customers could use. I'm just doing my job. Your job is checking IDs at the door, Vincent said, pushing through the crowd with controlled fury. Your job is not putting hands on my guests. And you definitely don't get to speak for me or make decisions about who stays and who goes. His eyes locked on Kyle's hand still pressed against Roland's shoulder. Remove your hand. The bar had gone nearly silent now. Even the game seemed quieter. Everyone was watching. Kyle's face flushed red, but his hand didn't move. He was caught between backing down and escalating, between admitting he was wrong and proving he had authority. I said, remove your hand, Vincent repeated. The words came out colder this time. Final. Kyle's fingers twitched. Then, instead of releasing, they tightened. His other hand came up, reaching for Roland's arm to pull him off the stool. Fine, I'll escort him out myself since you're too busy to see what's happening in your own bar. But as his hand closed around Roland's bicep, his fingers brushed against something. Something hard beneath the worn fabric of Roland's jacket. Something that made Kyle pause because it didn't fit. It felt like a scar, a deep one. Ridged tissue raised and twisted. Roland's entire body went rigid. The touch on his arm, combined with the grip on his shoulder, triggered something automatic. Something trained into muscle memory through thousands of repetitions. His weight shifted forward almost imperceptibly. His free hand moved to his side, fingers curling slightly. His eyes, which had been carefully neutral, suddenly focused with an intensity that made Kyle's breath catch. For just a second, Kyle wasn't looking at a homeless old man. He was looking at someone else entirely. Someone whose eyes calculated angles and vulnerabilities and counters with a speed that spoke of violence practiced until it became instinct. Someone who could hurt him badly before he even understood what was happening. Then Roland closed his eyes, and the moment passed. His body relaxed deliberately, forcing the training back down. I'm sorry, he said softly. I'll leave. There's no need for this. His voice shook slightly, not with fear, but with the effort of control. Sarah finally broke through the crowd. Kyle, stop it. Just stop. You're making a scene. She looked at Vincent desperately. Tell him. Vincent was already moving, but someone else was moving faster. From a booth near the back, a man stood up. He was older, early 70s, with steel gray hair, cropped military short. He wore a simple button-down shirt, but something about the way he carried himself commanded attention. Colonel James Patterson, retired Special Forces, had been watching the scene unfold with increasing alarm and a growing suspicion that was rapidly becoming certainty. Son, Patterson's voice rang out clear and hard. Take your hands off that man. Now. Kyle's head whipped around. Who the hell are you? Patterson was already crossing the floor, his eyes never leaving Roland's back. I'm someone who recognizes what you clearly don't. His hand went to his pocket and pulled out a challenge coin, holding it up. 5th Special Forces Group. Retired. And unless I'm very much mistaken, the man you're manhandling right now wore the same patch. His eyes moved to the backpack at Roland's feet, to the faded insignia now fully visible in the light. Kyle's grip loosened slightly. What? No. Look at him. He's homeless. He's probably wearing stolen gear. These guys fake it all the time. Patterson's face hardened. You don't know what you're talking about. He reached Roland's side and positioned himself between Kyle and the stool. His voice dropped lower, speaking directly to Kyle. I've been watching him since he walked in. The way he stands. The way he responded to the anthem. The precision in his movements, even when he's trying to hide it. That's not fake. That's decades of training. So I'm going to say this one more time. Remove your hands. Step back and apologize. Kyle's mouth opened and closed. He looked to Vincent for support, but the bar owner's expression offered none. The crowd pressed closer, phones still recording, capturing every word. Kyle's hands finally released Roland's shoulder and arm, pulling back as if burned. Roland sat motionless, his breathing carefully controlled. His hands rested on the bar, palms down, fingers spread. Anyone with training would recognize the position. Grounding, centering, fighting the urge to respond to a perceived threat with overwhelming force. Patterson moved around the stool until he could see Roland's face. The old man's eyes were still closed, his jaw clenched. "Sir," Patterson said gently. "It's okay. You're safe. Stand down." The words were deliberate. The language of someone speaking to a brother who might be caught between then and now, between the bar and somewhere else. Roland's eyes opened slowly. He looked at Patterson, and something passed between them. Recognition of kind. Not of faces, but of shared experience. Of knowing what it meant to carry violence as a skill and have to choose every day not to use it. "Thank you," Roland said quietly. "But I should go. I don't want to cause more trouble." He started to reach for his backpack, but Patterson's hand came down gently on his arm. "You're not going anywhere," Patterson said. "Not until we get this sorted." He turned to face Kyle fully, his voice hardening again. "You put your hands on a veteran, possibly a decorated veteran, based on nothing but his appearance, based on your own prejudice and assumptions. You should be ashamed." Kyle's face went from red to pale. "I didn't know. How was I supposed to know?" "You weren't supposed to know," Vincent said, stepping up beside Patterson. "You were supposed to treat every person who walks through that door with basic human dignity. You were supposed to trust my judgment when I said he could stay. Instead, you decided you knew better." His eyes swept over Kyle with contempt. "You're done. Clock out. Leave your shirt in the office. You don't work here anymore." The bar erupted. Some people cheered. Others gasped. Kyle stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Fired? For this? For doing his job? Kyle stumbled backward, his face cycling through disbelief and anger. "You can't fire me. Not for this. I was protecting your business. Protecting your reputation." He gestured wildly at Roland. "Look at him. You're choosing him over me?" Vincent's expression didn't change. "I'm choosing basic human decency over cruelty. I'm choosing respect over prejudice. Get out of my bar, Kyle. Now, before I have you escorted out." Kyle looked around the room, searching for support, for someone to validate his actions. But the faces looking back at him ranged from disgusted to pitying. The phones were still recording. This would be online within minutes. His name attached to it. His face. His actions. He grabbed his jacket from behind the door and stormed out, shoulder-checking the doorframe hard enough to rattle the glass. The silence that followed was heavy. Then someone started clapping, slowly at first. Then others joined until half the bar was applauding. Vincent waved them off, embarrassed. "That's enough. Game's still on. Drink up." But his eyes went to Roland, who sat perfectly still, staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. Patterson pulled up the stool next to Roland, moving slowly, deliberately non-threatening. His voice dropped low enough that only Roland could hear over the resumed noise. "It's been a long time since someone grabbed you like that, hasn't it?" Not a question. A statement born of understanding. Roland nodded once, not trusting his voice. His hands are shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. The touch on his arm had triggered a cascade of memories he kept buried deep. Other hands grabbing him. Enemy hands. Hands that meant capture or death. His body had responded the way it had been trained to respond, ready to break bones and create distance and neutralize the threat. And he had stopped it. Barely. But he had stopped it. "What unit?" Patterson asked gently. "5th Group," I saw the patch. "But what team? What years?" Roland's jaw worked. "A-Team, 523. 67 through 70. His voice came out rough and used to speaking about this. To speaking about any of it. The words felt foreign in his mouth after years of silence. Patterson's eyes widened. 523. He sat back slightly, studying Roland's face with new intensity. "You were there. You were actually there." His voice carried awe and something close to reverence. "I studied your team's operations at the War College. The POW extraction. Operation Thunderclap. They taught it as the textbook example of unconventional warfare. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You're Nomad." Roland flinched at the call sign like it was a physical blow. "Don't. Please. That was someone else. A long time ago." But Patterson wasn't deterred. 47 POWs, he continued quietly, held in a camp DeBrass said was unbreachable. Your team went in anyway. 5 operators against 300 enemy combatants. You held that camp for 8 hours until air support could arrive. 8 hours. Against impossible odds. He paused. 4 of your team made it out. Only 4. Roland's hand went to his chest, fingers pressing against the dog tags beneath his shirt. "Tony didn't make it out," he said. "Antonio Reyes. Point man. Best friend I ever had." His voice cracked. "RPG hit our position 6 hours in. Severed his femoral artery. He bled out in 90 seconds while I tried to stop it. While I held pressure and screamed for a medic who couldn't reach us through the fire. I could still feel his blood on my hands if I think about it too hard." The bar noise faded into background static. Patterson's face had gone soft with grief and recognition. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry." The operation's brief didn't include individual casualties, just the mission success and the body count. They never talked about the cost to the men who were there. The cost, Roland repeated bitterly. The cost was everything. Tony, 2 other brothers from the team, my ability to sleep without seeing their faces, my ability to look at my own reflection without seeing a man who lived when better men died. The cost was my marriage to grief and my daughter to the streets because I couldn't carry the weight and keep her safe from what I'd become. Sarah had moved closer, pretending to wipe down the bar, but listening to every word. Her heart broke with each sentence. This wasn't just a homeless veteran. This was a man who had done impossible things and paid an impossible price. A man who had saved 47 lives and lost his own in the process. Vincent approached from the other side, setting down a hot coffee without comment. He had heard enough to understand that whatever was unfolding here was bigger than a Super Bowl watch party, bigger than his bar. This was a reckoning decades in the making. Patterson reached into his wallet and pulled out a card. His hand shook slightly. "I run a program. It's not the VA. No bureaucracy. No paperwork. Just a place where guys like us can talk without judgment. Where combat vets help other combat vets." His voice was gentle. "I'd like you to come. Not tonight. Not when you're ready. Just come. The address is on there." Roland took the card with numb fingers. He had heard these offers before. Well-meaning people wanting to help. But help required vulnerability. Required admitting how far he had fallen. Required accepting that he needed something from someone else. And every time he had tried, every time he had stood at the threshold of asking for help, Tony's face appeared in his mind. Tony who would never get help. Tony who would never heal. Tony who deserved to be here more than Roland did. "You're thinking about him right now," Patterson said. "About your friend. About why you're still here and he's not." His voice carried the weight of experience. "I know because I've been there. Different war. Different faces. Same guilt. Same feeling that surviving was somehow betraying them." It was, Roland said flatly. "Every breath I take is one Tony doesn't get. Every sunrise I see is one he'll never see. How is that not betrayal?" "Because Tony wouldn't want this for you," Patterson said firmly. "I never met him, but I know the bond between operators. I know what it means to call someone brother. And I know that no operator wants his death to destroy the men who survive." He leaned forward. "Tony didn't die so you could live like this. He died so you could live. Period. There's a difference." Roland's eyes burned. "You don't understand. I was Overwatch. I had the high ground. I had the scope. I should have seen that RPG team moving into position. Should have called it out. Should have put rounds on them before they could fire. But I was focused on the wrong sector. I missed them. And Tony paid for my mistake with his life." The confession hung in the air between them. The weight Roland had carried for 43 years. The guilt that had consumed him more completely than any enemy ever could. The moment that defined every choice he had made since, including the choice to walk away from Elena and disappear into the streets. Patterson's hand came down on Roland's shoulder. Gentle this time. Nothing like Kyle's aggressive grip. This was the touch of a brother. No scope sees everything. No operator catches every threat. You were one man covering an impossible amount of ground under sustained fire. The fact that you kept the rest of your team alive for 8 hours is a miracle. The fact that you got 47 POWs home to their families is a miracle. Tony's death wasn't your failure. It was the cost of war. The cost we all sign up to pay. Roland shook his head. You don't know. You weren't there. His voice was rising, emotion bleeding through the careful control. I held him while he died. I felt him go. And his last words were not your fault. Never your fault. But they were. They are. And I've spent every day since trying to earn the right to still be here when he's not. That's why the streets, Sarah said softly. Both men turned to look at her. She met Roland's eyes with understanding beyond her years. You're punishing yourself, making yourself suffer because you think you deserve it, because you think comfort or happiness or family would be disrespecting his memory. Roland's throat closed. He couldn't speak, couldn't deny it, couldn't admit it. Listen to me, Patterson said. His voice carried command now. The voice of a colonel who had led men through hell. Surviving isn't betraying the dead. Suffering isn't honoring them. You want to honor Tony? Live. Actually live. Help other veterans who are where you are. Use what you learned. Use what you survived. Be the operator you trained to be, just in a different mission. Because right now, you're not honoring anyone. You're just slowly dying. The words hit like bullets. Roland's hands gripped the edge of the bar until his knuckles went white. Part of him wanted to run, wanted to grab his backpack and disappear back into the comfortable anonymity of the streets where no one asked hard questions and no one demanded he be anything other than invisible. But another part of him, a part that had been buried for 6 years, whispered that maybe Patterson was right. Maybe this wasn't honoring Tony. Maybe this was just cowardice dressed up as penance. On the television, the game continued. Touchdowns and field goals and commercial breaks. Life moving forward the way it always did, indifferent to the battles being fought in quiet corners of sports bars. Vincent Ruffier, Roland Escoffier. Sarah squeezed his hand briefly before moving to help other customers. And Patterson sat beside him in companionable silence, not pushing, just present, just waiting. The fourth quarter had just started when the door opened and a woman walked in. She was in her mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing hospital scrubs under a winter coat. Her eyes scanned the crowded bar with the practiced efficiency of someone used to assessing situations quickly. Sarah noticed her first, the way the woman's gaze swept across faces with an intensity that suggested she was looking for someone specific. Table for one? Sarah asked, approaching with a menu. The woman shook her head. I'm actually looking for someone. She pulled out her phone and showed Sarah a photograph. An older Asian man, maybe 10 years younger than the photo showed, smiling in what looked like a family gathering. Have you seen him? I know it's a long shot, but I've been checking every bar and restaurant in the marina for months. Sarah's breath caught. The man in the photo looked healthier, fuller in the face, but the bone structure was unmistakable. The same precise features. The same careful eyes. She glanced toward the bar, where Roland sat, talking quietly with Patterson, his back to the door. Why are you looking for him? The woman's voice cracked slightly. He's my father. He disappeared 6 years ago. Left a note saying not to look for him, but I never stopped. I check hospitals, shelters, anywhere I can think of. Her hand tightened on the phone. Please, if you've seen him, if you know anything. Sarah's mind raced. This was the daughter, the one Roland had mentioned. The doctor he watched from a distance but never approached. The person he thought he was protecting by staying away. Sarah looked back at Roland, saw the set of his shoulders, the way he held himself apart even while accepting Patterson's help. If she told him his daughter was here, would he run? Would he disappear back into the streets before Elena could reach him? Wait here, Sarah said quickly. Just wait. Don't leave. She moved through the crowd toward the bar, her heart hammering. When she reached Roland's side, she leaned in close. Sir, I need to tell you something. Someone's here. Someone looking for you. Roland's entire body went rigid. His hand moved automatically to his backpack, preparing to grab it and run. Who? Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. Your daughter. She's at the door. She has your picture. She's been searching for you. Before Roland could respond, before he could bolt, Sarah added quickly. She says she never stopped looking, that she checks everywhere. She's not angry. She's desperate. No, Roland said, the word coming out choked. No, she can't see me like this. She deserves better than. He started to stand, but Patterson's hand on his arm stopped him. Better than what? Patterson asked quietly. Better than knowing you're alive? Better than the chance to tell you she loves you? Because I guarantee whatever you think you're protecting her from, not knowing is worse. His voice hardened. I've seen what happens to families when soldiers don't come home. The not knowing destroys them. You're giving her the worst of both worlds. The grief of losing you without the closure of a body. Without the certainty. Just endless wondering and hoping and searching. Roland's hands were shaking again. I left her. I abandoned her when she needed me most. Right after her mother died. What kind of father does that? A father in pain, Sarah said. A father who made a mistake. But you're still alive. You can still fix this. His jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscle jumping. Please, don't run. Not this time. Across the bar, Elena was growing impatient. She started moving through the crowd, still holding her phone, showing the photo to other customers. Excuse me, have you seen this man? I'm looking for my father. The desperation in her voice carried over the game noise. Roland heard it. Heard his daughter's voice for the first time in 6 years. The sound hit him like a physical blow. His eyes closed. His breathing became shallow and rapid. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to protect her from seeing what he had become, to preserve whatever memory she had of him before the fall. But Patterson's words echoed in his head. You're not honoring anyone. You're just slowly dying. And suddenly he understood that running now would be the final betrayal. Not of Tony, of Elena, of the girl who had lost her mother and her father in the same year, who had been searching for 6 years for a ghost who was sitting 30 feet away from her. She's coming this way, Vincent said quietly. He had been watching Elena's progress through the crowd. In about 10 seconds, she's going to be standing right behind you. So you need to decide, run or stay. But make it fast. Roland's hand went to the dog tags under his shirt, to Tony's tags next to his own. Still here, brother, he whispered. Still trying. And maybe this was what trying actually looked like. Not suffering in silence. Not punishing himself into oblivion. But facing the people he had hurt and letting them decide if forgiveness was possible. He turned on the stool. Slowly, his eyes found Elena in the crowd. She was 5 feet away now, showing the photo to a man in a football jersey. The man was shaking his head, turning back to his drink. Elena's shoulders sagged with familiar disappointment. How many times had she done this? How many bars had she walked into with hope and walked out with nothing? Dad, Roland said. The word came out barely above a whisper, but in that moment, between plays, in a pocket of relative quiet, it carried. Elena froze. Her head snapped toward the sound. Her eyes found him, and for a long moment she just stared. Her face cycled through confusion, disbelief, recognition, and then something broke. Her hand came up to her mouth. The phone slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. Dad? Her voice cracked on the word. Oh my God. Dad? Roland stood slowly, his legs unsteady. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't be here. You deserve better than. But the words died as Elena crossed the distance between them in 3 strides and wrapped her arms around him. The impact nearly knocked him off balance. She was solid and real and shaking with sobs against his chest. Her arms locked around him with desperate strength. I've been looking everywhere, she said into his shoulder. Everywhere. I never stopped. I never gave up. Why did you leave? Why did you think I would be better without you? Roland's arms came up slowly, uncertainly, then closed around her. The first real human contact in years. The first embrace. His daughter, safe and alive and here. The tears came then, breaking through years of careful control. I couldn't function, he said brokenly. After your mother, I looked at you and saw her, and it hurt too much. I thought I was drowning you. Thought you needed space to heal without having to take care of me. I needed my father, Elena said fiercely, pulling back to look at his face. Her hands came up to frame his weathered cheeks. I needed you. Not perfect, not healed. Just there, just alive. She was crying openly now, not caring about the crowd watching, about the phones recording. I thought you were dead. I thought I had lost both of you. The bar had gone quiet again. Even the game seemed distant. Sarah was crying. Vincent's eyes were wet. Patterson stood with his hand over his mouth, watching the reunion with the understanding of a man who knew how rare these moments were. How precious. I'm alive, Roland said, the words feeling strange. I'm here. I'm so sorry I made you think otherwise. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. His hands trembled as they touched her hair, her face confirming she was real, that this wasn't another dream that would dissolve into waking alone under a bridge. You're here now, Elena said. That's what matters. You're here, and you're alive, and I found you. She pulled him close again, holding on like she was afraid he would disappear if she let go. We're going to fix this. We're going to get you help. Get you home. Get you back. I don't know if I can. Roland started, but she cut him off. You can. We will. Together. Her voice was firm despite the tears. I'm a doctor, Dad. I've seen people come back from worse. I've seen miracles. And if anyone deserves a miracle, it's you. You saved lives. You served your country. You lost your best friend and your wife, and you're still here. Still fighting. That takes more strength than running ever did. Patterson stepped forward carefully. Ma'am, my name is James Patterson, Colonel, retired 5th Special Forces. Your father and I were just talking about a program I run. For combat veterans. It's not the VA. It's smaller. More personal. No red tape. He glanced at Roland. If he's willing, I'd like to help. We have housing, counseling, job placement, whatever he needs. Elena looked at Patterson with gratitude and assessment. You knew him? From the service? I knew of him, Patterson said. His reputation, his call sign. Nomad was a legend in the community. Still is. She needs to know, he said to Roland. She deserves to know who you really were. What you did. The lives you saved. Roland shook his head. That doesn't matter. That was someone else. It does matter, Elena said firmly. Because whoever you were, whatever you did, you're still my father. And I'm not letting you go again. Vincent brought over 2 chairs and gestured for Roland and Elena to sit. The game played on, but most of the bar's attention remained on the reunion unfolding at the corner. Some people had started recording again, but Vincent moved through the crowd with quiet authority, asking them to put their phones away. This is private, he said firmly. Give them space. Elena kept one hand on Roland's arm the entire time they sat, like she was afraid he would vanish if she stopped touching him. Her eyes traced every line on his face, cataloging the changes 6 years had carved. He was thinner, grayer. The hollows under his cheekbones were pronounced. But it was him, alive, real. Here, tell me where you've been, she said. Just tell me. I need to understand. Roland's throat worked. The streets mostly. Shelters when I could get a bed. Under the freeway overpass near 3rd when I couldn't. His voice was rough with shame. I tried to stay invisible. Try to make sure you wouldn't find me looking like this. Why, Elena asked. Her voice broke on the word. Why would you choose that over coming home? Over letting me help you? Because I was broken, Roland said simply. After your mother died, something in me shattered. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every room in our apartment screamed her absence. Every morning I woke up forgetting she was gone, and then remembering all over again. And you were trying so hard to hold it together, to be strong for both of us. I saw what my grief was doing to you, how you couldn't heal because you were too busy keeping me alive. His hand touched hers carefully. I thought if I left, you could breathe, could move forward without having to carry me. Elena's tears started fresh. So you've been out here for 6 years thinking you were helping me? Dad, I haven't breathed since you left. I've spent every spare moment searching. Every day off checking shelters and hospitals and police stations. I filed missing person reports. I hired a private investigator. I've done everything except give up because giving up would mean accepting you were gone, and I couldn't do that. Roland's eyes closed against the pain in her voice. I'm sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you needed distance from what I'd become. What you become was grieving, Elena said fiercely. You become human. You become someone who loved Mom so much that losing her broke you. That's not shameful. That's not something to hide from. She squeezed his hand. I needed to grieve too, and I needed to grieve with you, with the only other person who loved her as much as I did. Instead, I lost both of you. Patterson had moved to give them privacy, but stayed close enough to intervene if needed. He recognized the fragility in Roland's posture. The way the old man sat like he expected this moment to dissolve, like he was waiting for Elena to realize her mistake and walk away. Patterson had seen it before in veterans who had convinced themselves they deserved nothing, but they had forfeited the right to love or family or peace. Sarah approached with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. On the house, she said softly, setting them down. Elena looked up and recognized her as the server who had come to get her. Thank you, she said. Thank you for telling me he was here. Sarah nodded. He's a good man. You can see it in how he carries himself. Even when he was being treated badly, he stayed respectful, stayed dignified. That takes strength. He was always like that, Elena said. Even when I was little, he never raised his voice, never lost his temper, just quiet and steady and always there. Until he wasn't. She looked at her father. I missed you so much. Every birthday, every holiday, every time something good happened, and I wanted to share it with you. Every time something bad happened, and I needed your advice. Roland's voice was barely audible. What did I miss? Everything, Elena said, but then she softened. I finished my residency. I'm an emergency room physician now, at San Francisco General. She saw his eyes widen slightly. I know you knew. I saw you once. Outside the hospital. About 3 years ago. I was coming off a double shift, and I looked across the street, and there you were. By the time I got through traffic, you were gone, but I knew it was you. Roland's breath caught. You saw me? I've seen you 4 times over the years, Elena admitted. Always from distance. Always before I could reach you. I thought I was going crazy. Thought I was seeing you in every homeless person because I wanted it so badly to be real. But it was you. Watching me. Checking on me. Why didn't you come closer? Why didn't you just come home? Because I didn't deserve to, Roland said. His hand went to his chest, pressing against the dog tags beneath his shirt. I left you when you needed me most. I chose the streets over my own daughter. What kind of father does that give him the right to just walk back into your life like nothing happened? The kind who made a mistake, Elena said firmly. The kind who was drowning and made a bad choice trying to save someone he loved. Dad, you're not the first person to run from grief. You're not the first veteran to struggle after losing someone. But you're still here. You're still alive. And that means we still have a chance. Vincent had been listening from behind the bar, and now he approached with quiet purpose. Sir, he said to Roland, I meant what I said earlier. You're welcome here anytime. But more than that, he pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. This is my personal number. If you need anything, a meal, a place to sit, someone to talk to, you call me, day or night. His eyes were serious. I watched my father struggle after Korea. Watched him push people away because he thought that's what he deserved. I was too young to help him then. But I'm not too young now. Roland took the card with trembling fingers. I don't know what to say. Say you'll use it, Vincent replied. Say you'll stop trying to disappear. He glanced at Elena. She found you. That's not an accident. That's the universe giving you a second chance. Don't waste it. Patterson stepped forward again. I'm in my offer too. The program has an opening. A room. It's yours if you want it. Clean bed. Hot meals. Counseling from people who understand what you've been through. And more importantly, a community. Other veterans who are fighting the same battles. Who know what it's like to come home from war and find that home doesn't exist anymore. Roland looked between Patterson, Vincent, Elena, and Sarah. All these people offering help. Offering a way back from the edge. Part of him still wanted to refuse. Still whispered that he didn't deserve it. That accepting help would be selfish. That Tony was still dead, and suffering was the only appropriate response. But Elena's hand was warm in his. Her eyes were desperate and hopeful and determined. And he realized that continuing to suffer wouldn't bring Tony back. Wouldn't honor his memory. Would just add one more casualty to a war that had already taken too much. Okay, he said quietly. The word felt massive. Felt like surrender and victory at the same time. I'll try. I don't know if I can do this, but I'll try. Elena's face transformed with relief and joy. That's all I ask. Just try. We'll figure out the rest together. She stood and pulled him up with her. Come on. We're leaving. Right now. You're coming home with me. Roland's eyes widened. Elena, I can't just. I'm not. He gestured at himself. Look at me. I need to get cleaned up. I have a shower, Elena said. I have clothes. I have everything you need. What I don't have is more time to waste. You've been gone 6 years. I'm not waiting another day. Her voice softened. Please, Dad, just come home. Roland looked at his backpack. Everything he owned was in that bag. 6 years of survival compressed into one worn canvas pack. His photo of Elena. His dog tags. Tony's challenge coin. The tattered paperback he read by streetlight. It seemed impossible that a whole life could fit in so little space. That he could just pick it up and walk away from the streets that had been his world for so long. Patterson picked up the backpack and handed it to him. You're not leaving it behind. You're bringing it with you. Bringing all of it. The good and the bad. The memories and the scars. That's how healing works. You don't erase the past. You integrate it. You learn to carry it without letting it crush you. Roland took the pack and slung it over his shoulder. The familiar weight settled against his back. But this time it felt different. Not like an anchor pulling him down, but like a reminder of how far he had come, of what he had survived. Elena linked her arm through his. Ready? He looked around the bar one more time. At Vincent watching with approval. At Sarah crying happy tears. At Patterson standing at attention with respect written across his face. At the strangers who had witnessed his lowest moment and his resurrection. Still here, brother, he whispered to Tony. Still trying. And this time, I'm not trying alone. Then he let his daughter lead him toward the door. Toward the cold February night that suddenly felt less hostile. Toward whatever came next. Elena's apartment was in the Sunset District, a modest one-bedroom she had rented after finishing residency. The drive took 20 minutes through streets Roland had walked 1,000 times in the dark, invisible and alone. Now he sat in the passenger seat of his daughter's car, watching the city pass through clean windows instead of experiencing it as a series of doorways and alleys and places to avoid. She talked the entire drive, nervous energy pouring out in stories about her work, her colleagues, the cases that haunted her. A gunshot victim she had saved last month. A child with meningitis who had coded twice but survived. She was filling the silence with words, trying to rebuild 6 years of conversation in 20 minutes. Roland listened, drinking in the sound of her voice, the animation in her face when she described a particularly challenging diagnosis. This is it, Elena said as they pulled into a small parking garage. It's not much, but it's home. She glanced at him anxiously. I have a couch that pulls out. It's actually pretty comfortable. We can figure out something more permanent tomorrow, but for tonight. It's perfect, Roland said quietly. Anything with a roof and you in it is perfect. They rode the elevator to the 4th floor in silence. Elena's hand found his again, squeezing gently. When she unlocked the door and flipped on the lights, Roland stopped in the doorway. The apartment was small but warm. Books everywhere. Medical journals stacked on the coffee table. Photographs on the walls. And there, on the mantel above a gas fireplace, was a picture he recognized. Him and Elena and his wife, taken at Elena's college graduation. All 3 of them smiling. All 3 of them whole. I couldn't put it away, Elena said, following his gaze. I tried once. Lasted about 2 hours before I put it back up. She moved to stand beside him, looking at the photograph. That was a good day. One of the last good days before everything fell apart. Your mother was so proud of you, Roland said. His voice cracked. She talked about it for weeks. Her daughter, the pre-med student, going to save the world. He touched the frame gently. She would be so proud of what you've become. So incredibly proud. Elena's arms came around him from behind. What about you? Are you proud? Roland turned to face her. More than I can say. More than I have any right to be given that I wasn't there for any of it. His hands cupped her face gently. You did this without me. Built this life. became this person. That's all you. All your strength. I would have preferred to do it with you, Elena said. But you're here now. That's what matters. She stepped back and gestured toward the hallway. Bathroom's through there. Clean towels in the cabinet. Take as long as you need. I'll make up the couch. Roland stood under the hot water for 40 minutes. The first real shower in weeks. The shelter had showers, but they were cold and rushed, and you never felt clean afterward. This was different. Elena's bathroom smelled like lavender and mint. The water pressure was strong. The heat reached his bones. He watched the grime and sweat and street residue spiral down the drain and felt like he was washing away more than dirt. Like he was trying to rinse off 6 years of shame and failure and self-imposed exile. When he finally emerged, wrapped in a towel that was softer than anything he remembered, Elena had left clothes folded on the bathroom counter. Sweatpants, a t-shirt, thick socks. They were too big on him, but clean and warm, and they smelled like fabric softener instead of exhaust and garbage. He found her in the kitchen making tea. She looked up when he appeared, and her eyes went soft. You look more like yourself. Still too thin. Still haunted around the eyes. But more like my dad. She handed him a mug. Chamomile. I remember you used to drink it before bed. You remember that? Roland said, surprised. I remember everything, Elena replied. I remember how you took your coffee. Black, no sugar. I remember your favorite food was Mom's pot roast, even though you'd eat anything without complaint. I remember how you used to check all the locks twice before bed because of, she paused, searching for the right words, because of what you'd seen, what you'd done, the habits you couldn't break. Roland sank onto the couch, the weight of the day finally catching up to him. I never wanted you to see that part of me. The broken parts. The parts that couldn't adjust to normal life. Date, I am an ER physician. I see broken every day. I see people at their absolute worst, and I help them heal. Why would you think I couldn't handle your broken parts? She sat beside him. You taught me to be strong, to face hard things. And then when you needed those same qualities from me, you ran because you thought I was too fragile to handle it. I was wrong, Roland admitted. I see that now. I robbed you of the chance to help me the way I tried to help you growing up. I made decisions for both of us based on my shame and my fear, and I hurt you worse than I would have if I just stayed and let you see me fall apart. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. Tell me about the man you carry with you. Tony. You mentioned him at the bar. Who was he? Roland's hand went automatically to his chest, feeling for the dog tags that were now sitting on the bathroom counter. Tony Reyes. Point man on my team. Best friend I ever had besides your mother. He was from El Paso. Had a sister named Maria who sent him care packages with hot sauce and comic books. He could make anyone laugh, even in the worst situations. And he died in my arms while I tried to stop the bleeding and screamed for help that couldn't reach us in time. Elena's hand found his. How old were you? 24, Roland said. Just kids playing at being soldiers. Except the bullets were real, and the blood was real, and watching your best friend die was real. His voice dropped. I've carried his tags ever since. Worn them next to mine. Visited his name on the wall every week for 40 years. Made promises to him in the dark that I would honor his sacrifice. That I would live a life worthy of the fact that I survived, and he didn't. And instead you lived on the streets, Elena said gently. Punishing yourself. Do you think that's what Tony would have wanted? No, Roland admitted. Tony would have kicked my ass for wasting 6 years feeling sorry for myself. He would have said something crude and funny and true about how I was dishonoring him by throwing my life away. That surviving meant living, not just existing. Then live, Elena said firmly. For Tony. For Mom. For me. For yourself. She pulled back to look at him. I know it won't be easy. I know that grief doesn't just disappear because you have a roof and a shower. I know the guilt will still be there. The nightmares. The triggers. All of it. But you don't have to carry it alone anymore. Patterson's program, Roland said. He mentioned housing. Counseling. Other veterans. We'll call him tomorrow, Elena said. Get you enrolled. Get you the help you need. And in the meantime, you're staying here. With me. Where I can keep an eye on you and make sure you're eating and actually taking care of yourself. She smiled. Doctor's orders. Roland felt something in his chest loosen. some knot that had been pulled tight for 6 years beginning to unwind. He was scared, terrified actually, scared that he would wake up and this would all be a dream, scared that he would fail again, scared that he didn't know how to be a father anymore, or a functioning person, or anything other than the ghost he had become. But Elena's hand was solid in his. Her presence was real. The apartment was warm. And for the first time in 6 years, he wasn't alone. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "In case I haven't said it enough. In case I never get another chance to say it. I'm so incredibly proud of the woman you become. Your mother would be too." Elena's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Tell me every day. Make up for lost time. Promise me you'll stay long enough to tell me every single day." "I promise," Roland said. And this time he meant it. This time he would keep his word. For Tony, for his wife, for Elena, and maybe, eventually for himself. They sat together on the couch as the night deepened, drinking tea and talking about small things. Her work schedule for the next week, the weather forecast, the Super Bowl game they had both missed the end of. Normal conversation. The kind families had. The kind Roland had forgotten existed. When Elena finally showed him how to pull out the couch into a bed, he sat on the edge and looked at the clean sheets, the soft pillows, the blanket she tucked around him like he was a child. "This is too much," he started to say, but she cut him off. "It's not enough," she said. "It will never be enough to make up for 6 years. But it's a start." She kissed his forehead. "Get some sleep, Dad. Tomorrow we start putting the pieces back together." After she closed the door to her bedroom, Roland lay in the darkness and listened to the sounds of the apartment. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic, the buildings settling. Safe sounds, home sounds. He reached for the dog tags he had placed on the side table and held them in his palm. His and Tony's. The metal was warm from being against his skin all day. "Still here, brother," he whispered into the dark. "Still trying. And I think maybe, finally, I'm doing it right. Thank you for not letting me give up completely. Thank you for the kicks in the ass I felt every time I wanted to quit. I'm going to make this count. I'm going to make surviving mean something." The tags clinked softly as he set them back down. For the first time in 6 years, Roland Shin closed his eyes without dreading the nightmares, without feeling like he deserved the punishment of sleepless nights. He closed his eyes and let himself rest, let himself be held by clean sheets and his daughter's love and the possibility that maybe, just maybe, redemption was real. Roland woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, and for 3 full seconds he didn't know where he was. His hand shot to his side, reaching for the backpack that should have been pressed against his body. His heart hammered. Then he saw the clean walls, the framed photographs, and remembered. Elena's apartment. He was safe. He was home. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen. He sat up slowly, his body aching from sleeping on an actual mattress instead of concrete. Muscles he had forgotten existed protested. He found his borrowed clothes folded on the chair and dressed quickly, moving with the automatic efficiency of someone used to being ready to move at a moment's notice. Elena was in the kitchen wearing scrubs, her hair still damp from the shower. She looked up when he appeared and smiled. "Good morning. I wasn't sure what you want for breakfast, so I made eggs and toast. Nothing fancy, but it's food." She gestured to the small table where 2 plates waited. "This is more than I've had in years," Roland said quietly. He sat down and looked at the food. Real eggs, scrambled with cheese. Buttered toast. Orange juice in a clean glass. His throat tightened. "Thank you." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Elena set down her fork and pulled out her phone. "I called Patterson this morning. Early. He was already up. Military habits, I guess." She showed Roland the screen where an appointment confirmation glowed. "He's expecting us at 10. The program facility is in the Presidio. He said to bring whatever you need, but they provide everything." "I don't need much," Roland said, thinking of his backpack. "Everything important fits in one bag." "We'll still bring it all," Elena said firmly. "And Dad, I want you to know this is your choice. If you get there and it doesn't feel right, we'll figure out something else." But Patterson seemed really invested in helping. "He talked about you like you were someone important." "I was just a soldier doing my job," Roland said. "Nothing special about that." Elena's eyes were intense. He said you saved 47 POWs from an impossible situation. He said they teach your operation at military schools. He said your call sign was Legend. That sounds pretty special to me. That was a long time ago, Roland said. Different person, different life. He pushed eggs around his plate. Whatever I did then doesn't erase what I've become. Doesn't change that I spent 6 years sleeping under bridges and begging for change. It doesn't erase it, Elena agreed, but does add context. Dad, you're not just a homeless veteran. You're a decorated operator who suffered losses that would break most people and then suffered more losses when Mom died. You're not weak for falling. You're strong for still being here, for still trying. The words hit him harder than he expected. He set down his fork before he could drop it. I don't feel strong. I feel like a coward who ran from his own daughter. Then let's change that, Elena said. Starting today. Starting right now. She checked her watch. I need to leave for my shift in 20 minutes. I'll drop you at the program facility. Patterson said they have intake procedures, medical screening, all the basics. It'll take most of the day. She hesitated. Will you be okay if I leave you there? Roland saw the fear in her eyes, the worry that he would bolt the second she was gone, that he would disappear again and she would spend another 6 years searching. He reached across the table and took her hand. I'll be there when you come back. I promise. On Tony's memory. On your mother's. I won't run again. Elena's shoulders relaxed slightly. Okay. I'm holding you to that. She stood and grabbed her bag. There's food in the fridge. Help yourself to anything. The spare key is on the counter. She wrote down her cell number on a notepad. Call me if you need anything. Literally anything. I don't care if I'm in the middle of surgery. You call. Roland pocketed the number and the key. Both felt heavier than they should. Symbols of trust he wasn't sure he had earned yet. I will. And Elena? Thank you. For not giving up on me. Never, she said fiercely. She kissed his cheek and headed for the door. Then she paused and turned back. Dad, I love you. I need you to know that. No matter what happened. No matter how long you were gone. I never stopped loving you. I love you too, Roland said, the words rusty from disuse but true. So incredibly much. After she left, Roland stood in the quiet apartment for a long moment. Then he moved to the mantel and picked up the photograph of the three of them. His wife's face smiled up at him, frozen in that perfect moment before everything shattered. I'm trying, he whispered to her. I know it's late. I know I should have done this years ago. But I'm trying now. I'm trying to be the man you thought I was. The father Elena deserves. He set the photo down gently and went to gather his backpack. Everything he owned still fit inside. The worn clothes, the tattered book, the challenge coin, the photograph of Elena he had carried for 6 years, and the dog tags. Always the dog tags. He held them for a moment, feeling the weight of Tony's tags against his own. Time to move forward, brother, he said quietly. Time to stop punishing myself and start actually living. You'd kick my ass if you knew how long I'd been wasting. So I'm going to do better. Going to try to earn the life you didn't get to have. The drive to the Presidio took 30 minutes. Elena navigated the morning traffic with practiced ease, pointing out landmarks and sharing stories about the neighborhood. Roland watched the city pass and realized how much he had missed while walking these same streets. He had been so focused on survival, on staying invisible, that he had stopped seeing the beauty. The parks, the architecture, the life happening all around him. The program facility was in a converted barracks building. Clean, well-maintained, American flag flying out front. Patterson met them at the entrance, dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt, looking more relaxed than he had at the bar. Welcome, he said, shaking Roland's hand firmly. Then he turned to Elena. Thank you for bringing him, and for not giving up the search. Thank you for recognizing him, Elena said, for seeing past the surface to who he really is. Patterson's smile was sad. I've seen too many good men fall through the cracks. I'm just glad we caught this one before he disappeared completely. He gestured toward the building. Come on, let me show you around. The facility was impressive. Individual rooms, not bunks. A common area with comfortable furniture and a large television. A kitchen where residents could cook their own meals. A counseling center. A job training wing. And everywhere, veterans. Some Roland's age. Some younger. all carrying the same weight in their eyes. The weight of having seen too much and not knowing how to unsee it. "This is Felix," Patterson said, introducing Roland to a man in his 40s with Marine Corps tattoos. "Felix runs our peer counseling program. Former recon. 3 tours in Iraq. He knows what it's like to come back and find that nothing fits anymore." Felix extended his hand. "Good to meet you. Patterson told me about you. Nomad, right?" He saw Roland flinch at the call sign. "It's okay. You don't have to be him here. You just have to be you. Whoever that is right now." "I don't know who that is anymore," Roland admitted. "That's what we're here to figure out," Felix said. "Together. No judgment. No pressure. Just veterans helping veterans find their way back." Patterson showed them a room. Small but clean. Bed with new sheets. Desk. Chair. Window overlooking a small garden. "This would be yours. No cost. No time limit. You stay until you're ready to move forward. Could be weeks. Could be months. Whatever it takes." Roland stood in the doorway, unable to process that this could be his. That he could have privacy and dignity in a space that was his own. "What do I have to do?" he asked. "What's the catch?" "No catch," Patterson said. "Just 3 requirements. 1. You attend counseling sessions twice a week. Individual and group. 2. You participate in the community. Help with cooking, cleaning, whatever needs doing. 3. You stay clean and sober. No drugs. No alcohol. Beyond that, this is your home for as long as you need it." Elena squeezed Roland's arm. "What do you think?" Roland looked at the room, at the bed, at the window, at Patterson and Felix standing there with genuine offers of help, at his daughter watching him with desperate hope. He thought about Tony, about his wife, about 6 years on the streets, about the choice in front of him. "I'll stay," he said quietly. "I'll try." "That's all we ask," Patterson said. He handed Roland a key. "Welcome home." Elena helped him settle his few belongings into the room. The backpack looked small sitting on the desk. 6 years of life reduced to so little. But maybe that was okay. Maybe starting over meant traveling light. Meant leaving behind everything except what mattered most. "I have to go to work," Elena said reluctantly. "But I'll be back tonight, after my shift. We can get dinner." Her voice caught. "If you're still here." "I'll be here," Roland promised. "I'm not running anymore." She hugged him tight. "I'm proud of you. For taking this step. For choosing to stay." After she left, Roland sat on the bed and looked around his new room. Through the window, he could see other residents moving through the garden. Talking, laughing, living. He touched the dog tags hanging around his neck. "Still here, brother," he whispered. Still trying. And for the first time, maybe actually succeeding. The first group counseling session was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. Roland sat in the common area, watching the clock creep toward the hour with growing dread. He had agreed to this, had promised Elena he would try. But the thought of sitting in a room with strangers and talking about his failures made his skin crawl. He had spent 6 years perfecting the art of invisibility. This was the opposite of everything he had trained himself to become. Felix found him staring at the wall. "First session's always the hardest," he said, sitting down in the chair across from Roland. "You don't have to share anything you're not ready to share. Just show up. Listen. That's enough for day 1. "What if I can't do this?" Roland said. "What if I'm too broken to fix?" "Then you'll be in good company," Felix replied. "Every man in that room thinks the same thing. Every single one believes they're uniquely damaged, that their pain is different, worse, unfixable." He leaned forward. "Spoiler alert. We're all broken. We all carry ghosts. The difference is whether we carry them alone or together." The counseling room was smaller than Roland expected. 8 chairs arranged in a circle. No table to hide behind. No barrier between participants. 5 men were already there when Roland walked in. They looked up and nodded. No judgment in their eyes. Just recognition. Patterson entered last and closed the door. "Welcome," he said simply. "For those who don't know, this is Roland. He's new to the program. Roland, these are your brothers. That's all you need to know for now. Names and stories come when you're ready." He sat down in the circle, making it clear he was a participant, not just a facilitator. "Who wants to start?" A younger man, maybe 30, with a prosthetic leg visible below his shorts, spoke first. "Had a rough week. Anniversary of the IED. Can't sleep. Keep seeing Martinez's face. Keep hearing him scream. His voice was flat, emotionless. 3 years later, and it still hits like it happened yesterday. Another man, older, with gray stubble and hollow eyes, nodded. 20 years for me. Mogadishu. Still can't watch fireworks. Still hit the deck when a car backfires. Wife left me last year because she said I was more ghost than man. He looked at Roland. It doesn't get easier, but does get more manageable. You learn to live with it instead of being consumed by it. Roland listened as each man shared his burden. The Marine who lost his entire squad and survived by hiding under their bodies. The Army medic who couldn't save a child and quit medicine entirely. The Navy corpsman who came home to find his brother had overdosed while he was deployed. Each story was different. Each pain was unique. But the thread running through all of them was the same. Guilt, grief, the crushing weight of surviving when others didn't. When the silence turned to Roland, he felt every eye on him. His hands gripped his knees until the knuckles went white. I don't know what to say. His voice came out rough. I've been on the streets for 6 years. Before that, I was a father, a husband. Before that, I was special forces. And I don't know how I got from there to here, except that I lost people and I couldn't handle it. That's a start, Patterson said gently. What people did you lose? My best friend, Roland said. Vietnam, 43 years ago. Tony Reyes. He died in my arms because I missed the RPG team that killed him. I was Overwatch. My job was to see everything. And I missed them. The words came faster now, breaking through the dam he had built. Then my wife. 6 years ago. Aneurysm. 1 second she was laughing. Next second she was gone. And I looked at my daughter, and I saw my wife's face, and I couldn't breathe. Couldn't function. So I ran. Left her alone when she needed me most. Lived on the streets because I thought that's what I deserved. Did it help, the Marine asked. The suffering. Did it bring them back? Did it honor them? No, Roland admitted. It just added more casualties. Made my daughter suffer too. Made Tony's sacrifice meaningless because I wasted the life he died to protect. So what changed? Patterson asked. What made you decide to stop? My daughter found me, Roland said. She's been searching for 6 years, and she found me in a bar where a bouncer was throwing me out. And she didn't see a failure or a coward. She saw her father, and she asked me to come home. His voice broke. I didn't think I deserved to, but she convinced me to try. The room was silent for a moment. Then the medic spoke. My kid's 7. Haven't seen him in 2 years. Ex-wife says I'm too unstable. Too unpredictable. Maybe she's right. His eyes met Roland's. But hearing you talk about your daughter still wanting you after 6 years, that gives me hope. That maybe it's not too late. It's never too late, Felix said. Not as long as you're still breathing. Not as long as you're still trying. He looked around the circle. We're all here because we hit bottom. Because we thought we were done. But we're still here. Still fighting. And that matters. The session continued for another hour. Stories shared. Tears shed. No solutions offered because there were no easy solutions. Just acknowledgement. Just witness. Just the simple act of not being alone with the darkness. When it ended, Roland felt hollowed out and somehow lighter at the same time. The Marine with the prosthetic leg caught him in the hallway. Takes guts to share that much on day one. Most guys spend weeks just listening. I'm Derek, by the way. Roland, he replied. Though Patterson keeps calling me Nomad. Derek's eyes widened. Wait, Nomad? 5th group? Operation Thunderclap? His voice dropped to a whisper. Holy shit. You're a legend. They taught your op at Benning when I went through Ranger School. That was a different person, Roland said quickly. Different life. Maybe, Derek said, but the skills are still there. The training. The discipline. You just need to redirect it. Survival on the streets is still survival. You're already a fighter. Now you just need to fight for yourself instead of against yourself. The words stayed with Roland as he returned to his room. He lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. How was your first day? Are you okay? Do you need me to come get you? He typed back slowly. I am okay. First session was hard, but good. I am staying. I promised I would. He hesitated, then added, I love you. Thank you for not giving up on me. Her response came immediately. Never. I'll always fight for you. even when you can't fight for yourself. Dinner tomorrow night? My place? Yes, I'll be there. He set down the phone and pulled out Tony's challenge coin from his pocket. The metal was warm from being carried all day. He traced the raised insignia with his thumb, the 5th Special Forces emblem. The motto, De oppressor liber, to free the oppressed. Maybe it was time to free himself, to stop being oppressed by guilt and grief and the weight of the past, to use the skills Tony had helped him develop for something other than self-destruction. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Felix stood in the hallway holding 2 mugs. Thought you might want some coffee. Decaf, better for sleep. He entered when Roland nodded and sat in the desk chair. That was brave. What you shared today. It didn't feel brave, Roland said. It felt like falling apart. Falling apart is sometimes the bravest thing you can do, Felix replied. Especially for guys like us. Operators. Warriors. We're trained to be unbreakable, to never show weakness, to handle everything alone. But that training can kill us when we come home, when we face things that can't be solved with tactics and violence. He sipped his coffee. I tried to handle my demons alone for 3 years. Almost ate my gun twice. Patterson found me sleeping in Golden Gate Park and dragged me here. Best thing that ever happened to me. How long have you been here? Roland asked. 2 years, Felix said. First year as a resident. Second year as a counselor. I'm not fixed. Still have nightmares. Still struggle with crowds and loud noises. But I'm functional. I'm alive. I'm helping other guys who are where I was. He met Roland's eyes. You'll get through this. Not because it's easy. Not because the pain goes away. But because you're strong enough to carry it and still move forward. Tony used to say something similar, Roland said. That strength wasn't about never falling. It was about getting back up. He smiled sadly. I just forgot for a while. Then remember now, Felix said. He stood and moved toward the door. Group meets every Tuesday and Thursday. Individual counseling is on Mondays and Fridays with Dr. Morrison. She's good. Former Navy psychiatrist. Understands the military mindset. And if you need to talk between sessions, my room's down the hall. Doors always open. After Felix left, Roland finished the coffee and prepared for bed. The routine was strange. Brushing his teeth with a toothbrush Felix had provided. Changing into clean pajamas Elena had bought. Lying down in a real bed with clean sheets. No sleeping with one eye open. No worrying about theft or violence. Just quiet and safety and the unfamiliar comfort of being cared for. He turned off the light and closed his eyes. The nightmares would probably come. They always did. But for the first time in 6 years, he wouldn't face them alone. There were people down the hall who understood, who had fought the same battles, who would be there in the morning to help him face another day. Still here, brother, he whispered into the darkness. Still trying. And I think I'm finally learning how. 3 weeks into the program, Patterson knocked on Roland's door early on a Saturday morning. Got something to show you, he said. Get dressed. We're taking a drive. They drove south through the city in Patterson's pickup truck, past neighborhoods Roland had walked through as a ghost. Patterson didn't explain where they were going, just drove with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Finally, they pulled into a cemetery. The gates were open, the grounds immaculately maintained. Why are we here? He asked quietly. Because you need to see something, Patterson said. He parked near the office and led Roland down a winding path between headstones. They walked for 5 minutes until Patterson stopped in front of a simple granite marker. The name engraved there made Roland's breath catch. Antonio Miguel Reyes, born 1946, died 1969. Beloved brother, honored warrior. Roland dropped to his knees in front of the stone. His hands shook as they touched the engraved letters. I didn't know. I didn't know they brought him home. I thought he was still in Arlington with the others. His sister had him moved 10 years ago, Patterson said quietly. Brought him back to California where his family could visit. I did some research after you told me his name. Found the records. Found his sister's contact information. He paused. She'd like to meet you, Roland. She's been wanting to meet the man who held her brother while he died. The man whose name was the last word Tony spoke. Roland's vision blurred with tears. He spoke my name? According to the after-action report I pulled, Patterson said. The medic who reached you 8 minutes after Tony died said you were still holding him, still talking to him. And Tony's last word was your call sign, Nomad. Like he was trying to tell you it wasn't your fault. Like he was trying to absolve you with his last breath. The sound that came from Roland was broken. A sob that had been building for 43 years. I've hated myself for so long. Blamed myself for missing that RPG team. For not being fast enough. For surviving when he didn't. Patterson knelt beside him. I know. I've read your file. The classified parts and the public parts. You want to know what I learned? That mission was rated impossible. Command gave your team a 5% chance of success and a 95% chance of total loss. You were supposed to all die there. The fact that any of you made it out was a miracle. The fact that you saved 47 POWs was legendary. And the fact that you've spent 43 years punishing yourself for not achieving the impossible is tragic. Roland pressed his forehead against the cold stone. I'm sorry, Tony. I'm so sorry I wasn't better. Wasn't faster. I'm sorry you died and I lived. I'm sorry I wasted so much time feeling sorry for myself instead of honoring what you gave. A voice spoke from behind them. He wouldn't want your apology. Both men turned to see a woman in her 60s standing on the path. She had Tony's eyes. Tony's smile. She approached slowly, her own eyes wet with tears. He would want you to live. To actually live. Not just survive. Maria, Patterson said, standing. This is Roland Shun. Nomad. Maria Reyes moved closer and looked down at Roland still kneeling by her brother's grave. I've waited a long time to meet you. She knelt beside him and took his hand. Tony wrote me letters. Did you know that? Every week. And in every letter, he talked about you. About how you were the best shot he'd ever seen. About how you kept the team together. About how you were going to do great things after the war. Her voice broke. His last letter arrived 3 days after the notification of his death. And in it, he said if anything happened to him, I should find you. Should tell you that you were his brother. That he trusted you with his life. That he knew you would always do your best. Roland couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. He didn't blame you, Maria continued. And neither do I. Neither does our family. You held him. You tried to save him. You made sure he wasn't alone. That's all anyone could ask. She squeezed his hand. So please, stop punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault. Stop wasting the life my brother died protecting. He deserves better than that. You deserve better than that. The words broke something inside Roland. The wall he had built around his grief. The fortress of guilt he had lived inside for decades. He wept openly, his body shaking with the force of it. Maria pulled him into an embrace and held him while he fell apart. Patterson stood watch, giving them space, his own eyes bright with unshed tears. When Roland could finally speak, his voice was raw. I carried his tags. For 43 years. Never took them off. I wanted him with me. Wanted to remember. I know, Maria said. The army told us. They said his tags were missing from his body. Said they must have been lost. But I knew. I knew someone who loved him had them. Had him. She pulled back to look at Roland's face. Can I see them? Roland pulled the chain from under his shirt. His tags and Tony's hung together, the metal worn smooth from decades of wear. Maria touched them with trembling fingers, tracing her brother's name. He's been with you all this time, keeping you company, watching over you. He saved my life more than once, Roland said. In combat, and after, every time I wanted to give up completely, I felt these tags and remembered I owed him more than surrender. I owed him a life lived fully. I just forgot how to do that for a while. Then remember now, Maria said firmly. My brother didn't die, so you could waste away on the streets. He died doing what he believed in. Protecting people. Saving lives. Fighting for something bigger than himself. Honor that. Live that. Be the man he knew you could be. Roland nodded, unable to speak. Maria stood and helped Roland to his feet. Come to dinner. Tomorrow night. Meet my family. Meet Tony's nephews and nieces who grew up hearing stories about Uncle Tony and his team. Let them meet the legend. Let them see that the sacrifices meant something. I'm not a legend, Roland protested. I'm just a man who failed his friend. You're a man who carried his friend for 43 years, Maria corrected. Who never forgot. Who honored him even when it hurt. That's not failure. That's love. She wrote her address on a piece of paper and pressed it into his hand. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock, please. After she left, Roland and Patterson stood in silence by Tony's grave. The morning sun had risen fully now, warming the stone. Roland touched the marker one more time. I'm trying, brother. I found my daughter. I'm in a program. I'm getting help. I'm doing what you said. What Maria said. I'm trying to actually live instead of just existing. You would be proud, Patterson said, of the operator you were and the man you're becoming. They walked back to the truck slowly. Roland felt lighter somehow, like laying down the burden of guilt at Tony's grave had freed something in his chest. The grief was still there, would always be there, but it felt different now, less like a weight crushing him and more like a reminder to live fully, to honor Tony not through suffering, but through action. On the drive back, Patterson spoke carefully. There's something else. The program has partnerships with several companies. Job training, placement assistance. One of them is a security consulting firm. They specifically hire former special forces. Your skills, your languages, your experience, they're valuable. They could use someone like you. I'm 68 years old, Roland said. Nobody wants to hire a 68-year-old former operator. They want to hire a man with your expertise, Patterson corrected. Consulting, training, advisory work, not field work. You'd be teaching the next generation, passing on what you learned, making sure other operators don't make the same mistakes, making sure they come home safer. The idea settled in Roland's mind. Purpose, not just survival, but actual purpose. Using what he knew, what he had paid for in blood and loss. Teaching others so maybe fewer families had to get notification letters. Fewer sisters had to bury brothers. Fewer operators had to carry tags that weren't their own. Tell me more, Roland said. Patterson smiled. I'll set up a meeting. Next week. After you've had time to settle more. After you've had dinner with Maria's family. One step at a time. One step at a time, Roland agreed. He looked out the window at the city passing by. The same streets he had walked invisible for 6 years. But he wasn't invisible anymore. Wasn't a ghost. He was Roland Chun. Father. Veteran. Survivor. And maybe, possibly, someone who still had something to offer the world. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Dinner tonight? I'm making Mom's pot roast. Thought maybe it was time. Roland's eyes burned. His wife's signature dish. The meal she had made for every celebration. Every milestone. Elena was offering him a piece of the life he had left behind. A chance to remember without drowning in the loss. He typed back. I'd love that. Thank you. The response came immediately. Bring your appetite. And Dad, I'm proud of you. For going to the cemetery. For facing it. Patterson told me what you were doing today. That took courage. Still here, Roland thought, touching the dog tags under his shirt. Still trying. And finally, brother, I think I'm getting it right. The smell hit Roland the moment he walked into Elena's apartment. Baudruast. The exact way his wife used to make it. Rosemary and thyme and red wine. Carrots and potatoes and onions that had simmered for hours until they melted on the tongue. He stopped in the doorway, overwhelmed by memory, so vivid it felt like time travel. Elena appeared from the kitchen wearing an apron, her face flushed from cooking. Too much, she asked, seeing his expression. I can order something else if this is too hard. No, Roland said, his voice thick. It's perfect. It's exactly right. He moved into the apartment and set down the flowers he had brought. Patterson had driven him to a florist that morning, helped him pick out a bouquet. Half for Elena, half to lay at his wife's grave tomorrow. Elena took the flowers with shining eyes. Ma would have loved these. Yellow roses were her favorite. She buried her face in the blooms. You remembered. I remember everything, Roland said. Every meal she made. Every smile. Every time she laughed at my terrible jokes. I remember all of it. I just had to stop remembering for a while, because it hurt too much. They sat down to dinner at Elena's small table. The pot roast was perfect, exactly like he remembered. For the first few bites they ate in silence, both lost in memory. Then Elena spoke. Tell me about her. Not about losing her. About having her. About the good parts. Roland set down his fork and let himself remember. Your mother was the bravest person I ever met. braver than any operator I served with. She knew what I had been, what I had done, the nightmares, the triggers, the times I woke up not knowing where I was. And she never flinched, never backed away. She just held me and told me I was safe, that I was home. How did you meet? Elena asked. Hospital, Roland said, a smile touching his lips. I was visiting a buddy who had been wounded. She was his nurse. I watched her work for 3 days before I got the courage to ask her coffee. She said yes, but only if I promised to stop lurking in the hallway like a stalker. He laughed at the memory. Our first date lasted 8 hours. We talked about everything. She knew about my service, about the classified missions I couldn't discuss. And she said that was okay, that she loved the man I was becoming, not just the operator I had been. She saw you, Elena said softly. Really saw you. She did, Roland agreed. And she made me believe I could have a normal life. A family. A future that wasn't defined by war. When we found out we were having you, she cried for an hour. Happy tears. She said she was going to raise a daughter who was stronger than both of us combined. His voice broke. She did that. You are that. Elena reached across the table and took his hand. I miss her every day, but I'm so grateful she was my mom, that she taught me to be strong, to fight for what matters, to never give up on the people I love. She squeezed his fingers. That's why I never stopped looking for you, because she taught me that family is worth fighting for. I'm sorry I made you fight alone, Roland said. I'm sorry I wasn't there for all the moments she would have wanted me to be there for. Your graduation, your first job, the hard days and the good days. I robbed us both of 6 years we can never get back. Then let's make up for it starting now, Elena said firmly. No more apologies. No more dwelling on what we lost. Just moving forward. Together. She stood and went to the counter, returning with a small photo album. I made this. Pictures of the last 6 years. Everything you missed. I want you to see it, to know what happened while you were gone. Roland opened the album with trembling hands. Elena in her white coat on her first day of residency. Elena receiving an award for outstanding patient care. Elena at a medical conference. Elena with colleagues, laughing at some inside joke. A life fully lived despite the absence, despite the grief. You did all this without me, he said, awe in his voice. Built this whole career, became this incredible person. I did it thinking about you, Elena corrected, wondering what you would say, what advice you would give, imagining you were proud of me, even though you weren't there to tell me. She turned a page, and sometimes I was so angry at you I couldn't see straight. Angry that you left, that you chose the streets over me, that you decided for both of us what was best. You had every right to be angry, Roland said. I made a selfish choice disguised as sacrifice. Yes, you did, Elena agreed. But you're here now. You're trying. And that matters more than the anger. She showed him another picture. This is from last year. Hospital fundraiser. I gave a speech about why I became a doctor. Want to know what I said? Tell me. I said I became a doctor because my father taught me that saving lives was the highest calling. That he had spent his career protecting people, and I wanted to do the same. That even though he was gone, his example lived on. Elena's eyes met his. You were still influencing me, still teaching me, even from a distance. Roland's throat closed. He looked at the picture of his daughter standing at a podium, confident and poised, and felt pride war with regret. I wish I had been there to hear it. Next year, Elena said. Next year you will be. If you're still here. If you're still trying. I will be, Roland promised. I'm not running anymore. Patterson's program is helping. The counseling. The community. And tomorrow night, I'm having dinner with Maria Reyes, Tony's sister. Elena's eyes widened. The friend who died? His sister wants to meet you? She already did, Roland said. Patterson took me to Tony's grave this morning. She was there. She forgave me for surviving when Tony didn't. Told me to stop punishing myself and start living. He touched the dog tags under his shirt. It felt like laying down a weight I'd been carrying for 43 years. Good, Elena said fiercely, because you deserve to live without that burden. You deserve peace, happiness, a life that isn't defined by loss. She closed the album. So let's make a deal. You keep trying to heal. Keep going to counseling. Keep accepting help. And I'll keep being here. Keep reminding you that you're loved, that you matter, that you're not alone. Deal, Roland said. He raised his water glass. To moving forward. To second chances. To not wasting the time we have left. Elena clinked her glass against his. To family. Always and forever. They finished dinner talking about smaller things. Elena's upcoming shifts. Roland's job interview with the security consulting firm. The possibility of Roland moving into his own apartment once he was stable. Plans for the future instead of dwelling on the past. Normal conversation. The kind families had. The kind Roland had forgotten existed. After dinner, Elena brought out dessert. Apple pie. Another of her mother's recipes. They ate in comfortable silence, both lost in memory, but together in the present. When the dishes were cleared and the coffee was poured, Elena pulled out her laptop. I want to show you something, she said. She turned the screen toward him. It was a news article from 3 days ago. The headline read, "Viral video shows veterans' emotional reunion at sports bar." Below was a photo. Roland embrassing Elena. The bar crowd watching. The moment captured by someone's phone. It got 2 million views, Elena said. People have been sharing it everywhere. Talking about how we need to do better for veterans. How we need to treat homeless people with dignity. How you never know who you're walking past on the street. She scrolled down to the comments. Listen to this one. I saw this man on the streets last year. Gave him $5, and he said, "Thank you, sir," with such respect it broke my heart. Now I know why. He was trained to show respect, even when receiving none. Roland read through more comments. People sharing their own stories of veteran family members. Others pledging to donate to veteran programs. Some admitting they had judged homeless people and were reconsidering their assumptions. His story had touched something. Had made people think. Had maybe even changed some minds. Vincent called me, Elena said. The bar owner. He wants you to come back. Not as a customer. As a guest of honor. He's organizing a fundraiser for Patterson's program. Wants you to speak. To tell your story. To help other veterans. I don't know if I can do that, Roland said. Public speaking. Talking about my failures. You wouldn't be talking about failures, Elena said. You'd be talking about survival. About healing. About second chances. And you wouldn't be doing it alone. I'd be there. Patterson would be there. Vincent. Sarah. Everyone who helped you. She reached for his hand. You have a platform now. A chance to make a difference. To turn your pain into purpose. Let me think about it, Roland said. But he was already thinking about Tony. About Maria saying he deserved better than self-destruction. About using what he had learned to help others. About taking the training and discipline and skills that had defined his life and redirecting them towards something meaningful. Take your time, Elena said. But remember what Mom used to say. The best way to heal your own wounds is to help heal someone else's. She was a wise woman, Roland said softly. I wish I had listened to her more when she was alive. Listen to her now, Elena said. She touched the photo album. She's still here. In the recipes she taught me. In the lessons she gave us both. In the love she made sure we knew how to give. She's not gone as long as we remember her. As long as we live the way she taught us to live. Roland stood and pulled his daughter into an embrace. Thank you, he said. For everything. For never giving up. For fighting for me when I had given up on myself. For being exactly the person your mother raised you to be. Elena held him tight. Thank you for coming back. For choosing to stay. For letting me help you. We're going to be okay, Dad. It won't be easy, but we're going to be okay. And standing in his daughter's apartment, full of his wife's cooking, surrounded by love he had tried so hard to escape, Roland Shun believed her. 3 months later, Roland stood at the entrance to Murphy's Sports Bar, watching the crowd gather for the fundraiser. The street was packed with people, veterans in dress uniforms, community members, press with cameras. Vincent had gone all out. Banners announcing the event. Tables set up for donations. A stage with microphone and sound system. All of it to raise money for Patterson's program and others like it. You ready? Patterson asked, appearing at Roland's elbow. He wore his dress uniform, chest heavy with medals and ribbons. The former colonel looked every inch the warrior he had been. No, Roland admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. He wore slacks and a button-down shirt Elena had helped him pick out. Clean, pressed, professional. The transformation from 3 months ago was stark. He had gained 20 pounds of healthy weight. His face had filled out. The desperate hollowness in his eyes had been replaced by something steadier. Not happiness exactly, but purpose. Elena emerged from the crowd with Sarah at her side. Both women were dressed up, both glowing with excitement. "Dad, there must be 300 people here." 300. Sarah squeezed his hand. "And they're all here because of you. Because your story touched them." "No pressure," Roland said with a weak smile. Vincent appeared in the doorway, his face breaking into a genuine grin when he saw Roland. There he is, the guest of honor. He pulled Roland into a brief hug. "Thank you for doing this, for being willing to share your story. It matters, more than you know." Inside, the bar had been transformed. Tables pushed back to create space. Chairs arranged in rows. A projector screen showing photos from Patterson's program. Veterans in various stages of recovery. Men learning job skills, sharing meals, supporting each other. Roland saw his own face in several photos. Talking with Felix, working in the garden, sitting in group session. "The program worked because of people like you," Patterson said quietly. "Men willing to be vulnerable, willing to admit they need help, willing to show others that recovery is possible. Your presence alone has changed the culture, given hope to guys who thought they were beyond saving." Roland scanned the crowd and spotted faces he knew. Derek, the Marine with the prosthetic leg, sitting in the front row with his 7-year-old son on his lap. The reunion had happened 2 weeks ago, facilitated by the program's family counseling services. Felix was there with his wife, holding hands, working on rebuilding what had been broken. The medic who had lost the child sat with a woman Roland recognized from the photos as his new girlfriend, someone who understood trauma because she was a veteran too. And there, in the third row, sat Maria Reyes with her extended family. She caught Roland's eye and gave him a thumbs up. He had been to 3 Sunday dinners at her house, met Tony's nephews and nieces, shared stories about their uncle, seen photos of Tony as a child, as a young man, as a soldier. The family had adopted Roland as one of their own, filling a hole he hadn't known was bleeding. Vincent took the stage first, welcoming everyone and explaining the purpose of the fundraiser. When Roland and his daughter walked through that door 3 months ago, we all witnessed something powerful. We witnessed what happens when we choose compassion over judgment, when we look past appearances to see the person underneath. Tonight, we celebrate that choice and support programs that help our veterans find their way home. Patterson spoke next, detailing the program's mission and success rates. 73% of our residents successfully transition to stable housing and employment within a year. But more importantly, 94% report improved mental health and renewed sense of purpose. We don't just provide beds and meals. We provide community, brotherhood, a reason to keep fighting. Then it was Elena's turn. She took the stage with the poise of someone used to presenting to medical conferences. But her voice shook slightly when she began. "I spent 6 years looking for my father. 6 years wondering if he was alive or dead. 6 years blaming myself for not being enough to make him stay." She looked directly at Roland. "And when I finally found him after all that time, I realized something. He wasn't lost because he didn't love me. He was lost because he loved me too much. Because his grief and his guilt convinced him I was better off without him." Her voice strengthened. "He was wrong. And I'm grateful he's finally learning that he's finally accepting the love and help he always deserved." The applause was warm. Roland's eyes burned. Then Vincent called him to the stage. The crowd rose to their feet before he even reached the microphone. The standing ovation lasted a full minute. Roland stood frozen, overwhelmed, until Patterson gestured for him to speak. Roland gripped the microphone stand like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "I don't feel like I deserve this," he started. His voice was rough, amplified through the speakers. 3 months ago, I was homeless. 6 years ago, I abandoned my daughter because I couldn't handle my own pain. 43 years ago, I lost my best friend, and I've been punishing myself for it ever since. Those aren't the actions of a hero. Those are the actions of a man who forgot that surviving isn't betraying the dead." The room was completely silent. "Tony Reyes died in my arms," Roland continued. "He was my point man. My brother, the best man I ever knew. And for 43 years, I carried the guilt of his death like a weight around my neck. I thought suffering was how I honored him. I thought making myself miserable was the price I owed for still being alive. He paused, touching the dog tags under his shirt. I was wrong. I met his sister 3 months ago, and she told me Tony wouldn't want my suffering. He would want my life. Actually lived, not just endured. Roland looked at Elena. When my wife died 6 years ago, I ran. I left my daughter alone because I thought I was too broken to be any good to her. I thought she needed space from my grief, from my brokenness. His voice cracked. I was wrong about that too. She needed her father, broken or not. And I robbed us both of 6 years because I was too afraid to accept help, too proud to admit I couldn't do it alone. He turned to face the crowd fully. If you're a veteran struggling with demons, with guilt, with the weight of what you've seen and done, please hear me. You are not alone. You are not beyond help. And suffering in silence doesn't honor the ones we lost. It just adds more casualties to wars that already took too much. He gestured to Patterson. Programs like this exist because people understand. Because other veterans who have been where you are want to help you find your way back. The words came easier now. I'm not fixed. I still have nightmares. I still carry Tony's dog tags. I still miss my wife every single day. But I'm learning to carry those things without letting them crush me. I'm learning to live instead of just survive. And I'm learning that accepting help isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing a warrior can do. He looked at the veterans scattered throughout the crowd. Some were crying. Some sat with jaws clenched against emotion. Some nodded in recognition. To every veteran here tonight, whether you're thriving or barely holding on, I want you to know something. You matter. Your life matters. And there are people who will fight for you even when you can't fight for yourself. Let them. Please. Let them help you the way these people helped me. The applause when he finished was thunderous. Roland stepped off the stage into Elena's embrace. She was sobbing. I'm so proud of you. So incredibly proud. Vincent shook his hand. Patterson pulled him into a hug. And then Derek was there with his son, the boy looking up at Roland with wide eyes. Are you really Nomad? The boy asked. The legend my dad talks about. I was Nomad a long time ago, Roland said, kneeling to the boy's level. Now I'm just Roland, just a man trying to do better. He looked at Derek. But your dad is a real hero. He's fighting battles you can't see, and he's winning. That takes more courage than anything I did in a war. Derek's eyes shone with tears. Thank you for showing me it was possible to come back, to be a father again. His son wrapped his arms around Derek's leg, and the Marine's face crumpled with emotion. The fundraiser raised $80,000 that night, enough to expand the program, to add more beds, to hire another counselor, to help more veterans find their way home. But the real victory was in the conversations happening at every table. Veterans connecting with resources, families finding hope, community members understanding that the person they walked past on the street might be a hero lost in their own war. 2 weeks later, Roland started his new job at the security consulting firm, teaching tactics to younger operators, reviewing mission plans, sharing lessons learned from decades of experience. His languages and expertise were valuable. His knowledge hard-won and respected. He had purpose again, direction, a reason to wake up each morning that went beyond mere survival. He moved into his own apartment a month after that. Small but his. Elena helped him furnish it with second-hand finds and donations from program supporters. The first thing he hung on the wall was a photograph. Him and Elena and his wife, smiling at Elena's college graduation. The last picture of all three of them together. Below it, he placed a shadow box containing Tony's challenge coin, the coordinates of their last operation together, and a photo of A-Team 523 taken in 1968. All of them young, all of them whole, only 2 still alive. Every Sunday, he had dinner with Maria's family. Every Wednesday, he attended group counseling. Every Friday, he had dinner with Elena, alternating who cooked. He visited Tony's grave once a month, bringing flowers and speaking aloud about his progress, about the veterans he was helping train, about Elena's life, about moving forward while never forgetting. 6 months after that first night at Murphy's, Roland stood at another podium, this time at a veterans symposium in Sacramento. 500 people in the audience. His topic was translating combat skills to civilian purpose. But what he really talked about was survival, about choosing life over slow death, about accepting help as an act of courage rather than weakness. In the audience sat Elena, Patterson, Vincent, Sarah, Felix, Derek, Maria, and 24 veterans from the program. His community, his family, the people who had refused to let him disappear, who had seen past the grime and hollow eyes to the man beneath, who had offered second chances when he thought he was beyond redemption. That night, lying in his own bed in his own apartment, Roland touched the dog tags hanging around his neck. "Still here, brother," he whispered into the darkness. "Still trying. And this time, finally, I'm getting it right. I'm living, actually living, the way you would have wanted, the way I should have been doing all along." Outside his window, San Francisco stretched out in lights and life. The same city where he had been invisible for 6 years, where he had walked as a ghost among the living. Now he was visible again, present, connected, a father, a veteran, a teacher, a survivor transformed into someone who helped others survive. The nightmares still came sometimes. The grief still had weight, but he carried them differently now, not as punishment, not as penance, just as part of who he was, part of what made him human, part of what made him able to help others who carried similar burdens. Roland Chin closed his eyes and let himself rest. Tomorrow he would wake up and keep trying, keep living, keep honoring those who didn't make it home by making sure his own homecoming counted for something, by being the man his daughter needed, the friend Tony had believed in, the husband his wife had loved. Not perfect, not unbroken, but present, trying, and finally, blessedly, home.